You're with Julian on the Brown Note and a review of the latest It horror movie and Stephen King adaptation, of which there's something like 70 or something like that ridiculous figure, which has just come out to quite a lot, nearly 80% on Rotten Tomatoes. I really don't understand who the director, Oz Perkins, who he knows, because last year he made the film Longlegs. And it was a spectacular year for horror movies, right up there with the best. There were so many great horror movies. In my top 20 films of the year, there was probably 6 horror movies. Outstanding stuff. And Longlegs was one of the most acclaimed of the year and promoted. And I thought it was pretty trash. I just didn't think it was an interesting film, but it got acclaim and did decent box office. Same thing's happening with this film. So this is as bog standard a horror film as you can get. We get two brothers. They're played both by Theo James as identical twins, and they discover a child's toy, which is this drum-playing monkey, and that just is basically the artifact that kills people. It's this supernatural artifact that follows the family and causes deaths along the way. The caveat being that you turn it up to wind the monkey up to play, and someone will die in a sort of Final Destination manner. Pretty much literally Final Destination stuff, with the point being that you can't decide who dies. So I think the kids, as they go through to adulthood, they try and kill each other with it, and end up killing like virtually their whole family over and over. They realise that they can't get rid of it because it follows them into adulthood, and then these deaths start happening again. So it's as bog standard a kind of horror as you can get. You know, there's an artifact that causes death, and it's supernatural and possessed. You don't really get to know anything more about the monkey itself. The monkey itself is probably the most interesting thing in the film. At least it seemed to be having a good time. I certainly was not. There is nothing about this film that I would recommend. How it's got nearly 80% on Rotten Tomatoes is blowing my mind. So Stephen King's had some really bad adaptions of his work and some really good ones. He's come out in praise of this film, and I'm just not understanding where that's coming from. I went to turn this film off at least 3 times and just left it running so I could review it, and just was so over it. Everything about it is so rote and predictable and lifted from not even interesting modern horrors, but the most boring horrors you could find. A lot of people, including Stephen King, have been raving about the death scenes. They're perfunctory. I didn't really find them to be that interesting. Quite gory and violent, but done in a way that is almost a little bit slapstick. The tone was all over the place. I don't know if it was aiming to be a comic horror. It came across more like that, but also the fact that nothing in it seemed to matter. It was just like every time a character came along, they just kill them. In a brutal way, but also in a histrionic and not, like the Final Destination deaths, way, way, way better than these kind of deaths in this film. There's one of the characters, Rohan Campbell as Ricky, is actually terrible. I was laughing out loud. He's supposed to be like this hard local dude. It's just like, oh my god. Theo James is fine as the twins. There's so little substance to this film. Like, it's so forgettable. It's so predictable. It's so rote. And I found it quite painful and challenging to even get through. I've got no idea why Longlegs got good reviews last year. I thought that was flat, but it was a hell of a lot better than this. That was like a film. Longlegs was trying to be something much more than it was, and I feel like the monkey isn't trying to be anything. Like, Longlegs had a very dreary lead performance, which occupied most of the film, and then a like for less than a third of the film, you've got that gonzo performance by Nicolas Cage, which is where all of the sort of plaudits and attention for that movie came. But it was only a small part of the film, really. Most of it was actually fairly dull, but it was a lot better than this. I just don't understand why people can sit through films like this and not point out how bad they are. So I really don't. I mean, he did the Hansel and Gretel film as well, which was another one that didn't get particularly. That one actually didn't get great reviews, but his last two films I have thought were pretty dire. And I think Longlegs I gave a 6 out of 10 to, but The Monkey is absolutely dreadful. It is the most 1980s B-movie horror film, but not in a good way. Not in a way that's, referencing that era of things. It just doesn't have an original bone in its body. I didn't find the death sequences that memorable. I didn't think any of the performances were good. I didn't visually think that it was that amazing. There was the odd sequence where it got a bit trippy that was about it. So, The Monkey, I think, is absolute garbage. Is that the first garbage film I've reviewed this year? Well, I'm going to give The Monkey a 2 out of 10 for being absolute rubbish.